Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella. We are in the middle of summer, and it is hot. And oftentimes when we talk about heat, and we talk about, especially I'm in Michigan, and in Michigan we talk about heat as being oppressive because it comes with it a ton of humidity. And the other day I had a friend say, hey man, this is just it's like oppressive heat, right? And I said, yeah, when you say oppressive, what do you mean? I think I knew what he meant, but I really wanted to hear him say it. And he used terms like, it's heavy. Like, it's oppressive, it's heavy. He said, we haven't been able to do the same stuff. Like, we can't even hardly go for a walk. Like, it's preventing me from living my normal life. It's oppressive. I said, yeah, I know, you can almost like feel it in the air. And he added, yeah, it's almost like you can't breathe. And in that moment, I don't know what it was. I wasn't really getting at anything when we were having a conversation about weather. But when he said, I can't breathe, it hit me. And I realized the way we describe oppressive heat, man, we have the same going on in our climate, in our culture, in our relations politically, in our interactions along racial lines and racial divides. This thing, oppression, is something that now in the Bible we talk a lot about. The oppression there's tons of examples with stories in the Bible, and yet as Christians we've always kind of seen ourselves as on the side, the ones being oppressed, right? The Bible is full of these stories, and so we read them and we think, yeah, I love that makes sense, right? In Babylon there's a ton of oppression and the people at the top are trying to be gods. And then in Egypt, it's really clear that Pharaoh isn't really a great dude, and he's oppressing the Israelites. But what we don't often talk about is the Egyptians. Like, there's a whole group of people that are benefiting from this oppression. And as Christians, we like to think that we align with the oppressed because of the Bible verses that go along with it. And then even in Jesus' time, when Jesus comes onto the scene, the Roman Empire is fairly oppressive, especially to Jews. And so Jesus shows up on the scene in an oppressive setting. And so we love that Jesus shows up and says, I am on your side. I am changing the game and I'm changing the rules, and it's not going to look the same anymore. I didn't come here to rule with power. I came here to be on the side of the oppressor. And we love it. We love it. And then when it translates to our faith, we realize that sin is an oppressor. That the things in our lives, the bad choices we make, the results of the fall always impact, they're oppressive to us, that, they're heavy. And we love that Jesus came to overcome death, the ultimate oppressor. And yet what I think we never expected to happen is to be on the side of the oppressor. See, the crazy thing about oppression, like a simple definition of oppression, is that oppression it's my power at your expense or at somebody else's expense. And the unique part about Christianity in America is it is a position of power. It's the most widely accepted religion. And so it actually, unfortunately, it flipped the script on us. And a lot of times our faith did not necessarily adjust to accommodate this new reality. When Jesus was teaching and talking, he was talking to a group of people that were downtrodden and oppressed. And yet somehow our faith now gives us all of these privileges and opportunities that no longer really match up that well with what Jesus was teaching. And so I wanted to talk about it because I think a lot of times we like to sit back and say, no, I'm not a bad person. And for the most part, I don't think we are. And yet the thing is, when we think about that definition of oppression, it's my power at your expense. Historically, the oppressor never saw themselves as the oppressor. If you think about Pharaoh, if you were to ask Pharaoh, why are you doing this? He'd probably say things like, it's either me or it's them. Like, I have to act, I have to do what I have to do for the sake of my family. Like, I should be rewarded for that. And yet he's not in the middle of it able to see it. He's blind to it. And sometimes the way that looks today, it says, if they want it to be different, maybe they should try harder. But we didn't say that with the Israelites. They were literally building things for the Egyptians. They were slave labor. And we never saw the Israelites as lazy. They should try harder, right? No, God showed up and said, this isn't right. I am on the side of those being oppressed, not on the side of the oppressor. And so today I wanted to just kind of challenge us. We're in the middle of a series called The Center, where we're trying to say, what is God actually asking from us? And in order to do that, we have to center up and actually ask God. We have to be in God's presence. And one of the things that I'm struck by as I study the Bible, and one of my favorite authors of the Bible, in fact, he wrote probably the majority of, at least more than anybody else, is Luke. And people believe that Luke wrote over 25% of the Bible. And he's always fascinated me because Luke is understood to be a doctor. And he is a doctor in a Roman world. He was most likely a Gentile, but he succeeded in a space that maybe gave him some privilege, that maybe gave him some power. And I love reading his accounts because he doesn't have to speak up. Luke's life would go on just perfectly fine as a doctor, as a historian, as somebody who just likes to be and exist. But he felt no, this is big. What Jesus is doing is big, and I need to capture it. I need to set aside what this might do in my life as a doctor who's privileged and have to speak out and speak up. But that doesn't just come from Luke. Luke has to do that out of a place of being centered, out of a place of saying, what does God want from me, and how do I step into this? And that's kind of my message today. I want to challenge us as we read the Bible to read it no longer from the perspective of being oppressed. Read it from the perspective that there are people among us that are oppressed, and how do we step into that and join them? Proverbs 31, 8-9 says, speak up for those who cannot speak. For the rights of all who are destitute, speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. The Bible is clear that that's the overarching message is to come for people who don't have a voice, who don't have the same rights and privileges in a society. Jesus didn't come for Christians. Jesus came for people who wanted to know God, love God, and interact with a relationally loving God in a way that would change the world. And he invited us to do the same. And so this week, as you live out your faith, consider where you could speak up, where you could use your voice to give a voice to those who don't have it, where you could speak about faith in a way that would draw people in and show them a God that is inviting and is loving and not judging. This week in your faith, consider what your voice could do for those that don't have one. Thanks for watching Faith in 5. If you like what you see, please like and share. If you're interested in making a donation to our ministry, please click the link below.